So recently, I had the chance to watch what I felt like was a very entertaining movie. A newer movie starring Tom Hanks portraying the life of Elvis. And I was just like glued in. I was just, I had known about Elvis. Many of you probably remember Elvis in his heyday. Some of you are, I've only seen pictures or images, but his story was just fascinating. And I had forgotten so many elements of his story. Now, the movie is not completely accurate, okay? There's parts that there's been creative liberty taken in the movie, but I found myself really drawn in towards the end as Elvis's life was progressing. By the way, he's the highest, selling recording artist ever. And here he is at the end of his life, and I just remember noticing some things about him and how he was portrayed in the movie. Elvis just looked, towards the end of his life, after 20 plus years of doing life and family and finances and whatever, he just looked lost. He looked, I don't know, like he was depleted. Like he didn't have a lot left, And you could just tell. You could tell because it seemed like all the tours, night after night after night after night, all the drugs, all the alcohol, the relational drama, his wife leaving him. It just seemed like it had taken its toll, and he began to be distracted. Distracted by things, or willingly distracted by things so that he wouldn't have to focus on, the inner circle problems that were going on. And you could just see that he was depressed. Like that he wasn't happy, even though he had it all, like in our eyes, right? The fame, the family, the fortune. It wasn't fulfilling to him. And then maybe finally, he was deceived. He just never felt like he had arrived. He had accomplished his dream in life, and that was kind of the theme portrayed throughout the movie. And I remember this one scene where they're rushing Elvis to the stage, and they had to help him perform because he was just so like lost and had no energy. He collapses, right? And then the thing that was shouted by his manager was, the only thing that matters is that man gets on that stage tonight. And that was his life. The only thing that mattered was that he got on a stage in front of people and sang music. And that was the only thing that mattered. And what ended up happening to Elvis, from my view, is he just ran out of energy. He tried to keep pace. He went to things to give him energy or to at least numb his pain. But inside, and you can see it so clearly in the movie, inside there was nothing left. And he was empty, and he was lost. I mean, do you ever feel like that? Where it's like every day you feel this pressure, I've got to get on that stage, no matter how I'm feeling, no matter how depleted I am, no matter how depressed I am, but there's people that need you. There's people you need to perform for. There's a job you have to show up to. There's a husband or a wife that you have to come alongside with. There's kids that they need you. I mean, do you ever feel like that, where your life, no matter how you're feeling internally, the only thing that matters is that I just keep producing. The only thing that matters is that I get up on that stage and I do what I'm supposed to do. And at the end of this movie, they gave all sorts of reasons why Elvis died. And my theory is that he had dreams, just like you have dreams. And he mentions it several times in the movie, the things he dreamed of. He had dreams that his pace couldn't sustain. That's what happened to him. He just couldn't slow down. And it wasn't an effective way to do life, and it cost him his family. And it cost him his own mental and emotional health. And the most tragic thing about the whole story of Elvis to me is that He had everything, but he couldn't see it. He had a wife, he had a daughter, but he couldn't see it. His pace blinded him. This whole series we've been talking about, what do you want to hear at the end of this year? Like if something could be true, if you have a dream for like the future you or the way your family should function or the way you hoped your relationship with one of your children would be better, or if maybe you had a habit that would make you better, like what do you want to hear when you get to the end of this year, when you get to the end of your marriage, when you get to the end of this season? You likely want to hear that it's better. You likely want to hear that it's sustaining. You likely want to hear that you have a relationship with other people that are in your life that is life-giving, and you have the ability to grow in those, and especially your relationship with God. That's why you're here, to at least learn about God, at least maybe consider, maybe God is what I'm missing. And for others of you, you know that there's distance there, and you want that to be different at the end of the year. And here's what happens. And I hope it doesn't. I hope this doesn't happen. In fact, as I've done this whole series, I thought about today's message, and I really hope that what happens at the end of this year is nothing. That you and I are the exact same. Our family is the same. Our marriage is the same. Our approach to our relationship with God is the same. I hope that that's not what you hear at the end of the year, but the past indicates that that's more than likely true. And I hope, and what we'll do and what I do when a year goes by and nothing changes is we usually figure out how to say, well, if this had been different, like if I just had more resources, if I just had more insights, if I just had more skills, if I had more finances, if I had, more strategies, just more things, then I could have done what I wanted to do or heard what I wanted to hear. Or this could have been better, or that could have been better. Like we typically go, well, if I just had more resources, then I could have done it. Or we tend to say something like this, well, if I just had more support. Like if I just had the right people around me, if I had the right people encouraging me, then maybe I could have pushed forward. Or maybe if I had a workout buddy, I could have pushed forward to those physical goals. And so if I just had the right support around me, then maybe I could realize some of those things. Or maybe we say, if I just had more control. Like, you don't understand. The circumstances that happened messed everything up. They did this. Something changed, and something inserted itself into my scenario, and it made it so much harder. And that's why I didn't get the change that I hoped I would get at the end of the year. And others of us, and this is maybe the most popular one, we talked a lot about this last week, is time. Man, if I just had more time, right? Well, the year's over, but if I just had more time to get it done, to work on it, to read that book, if I just had more time so I could do that one-on-one with my kids that I know that relationship needs, whether they're small or adult, if I just had more time, you know what? If our marriage, if we just had more dates, if we just had more time to have more dates, then all of this would be better. If we just had some more time in the week, then we could really get involved at church. Then I could really add that daily discipline of getting into Scripture and spending time with God. Like if I just had more time, then yeah, all these things I could hear. But what ends up happening is we end up inserting a reason why we don't hear what we want to hear, because we tend to say, well, if I just had more resources, support, if I just had more control, if I just had more time, then I could take that step. Then I could start that habit. Then this could be better. Then I could be the father. Then I could be the wife. Then I could be the person that I dreamed that I would be. And all of these things, they could play into it for you, but they will not be why you don't hear what you want to hear and what you've always wanted to hear at the end of the year. And we see this lesson so clearly in the life of Jesus, and so simply as he encounters two sisters. And so I want you to turn to Luke chapter 10, starting with verse 38. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, where were they going? Well, Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem, only the most important mission and trip of his life, so he could teach the people, answer all the questions, do some more healings, and eventually end up to the cross, dying for the sins of the world. And that was going to be painful, and that was going to be difficult, and that was going to be a lot of suffering. There was going to be a lot of rejection. His own friends were going to leave him. So he's on this journey. He knows where it's going to end. He knows where he wants to be at the end of his year, surrendering on behalf of everyone else. And so he knows what it's going to take. And so they're on their way. And he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. And so they stop. Why do they stop? Jesus is on this all-important mission. They stop to be refreshed. They stop because they had just been doing a lot of work, teaching and traveling. They stop because they just want some time to be with each other. They just want to take it in. And so Luke begins to describe two women, and he sort of compares and contrasts them, and you'll see this throughout the text. Verse 39, she had a sister, speaking about Martha, named Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. Now, both of these women that we meet here and Luke introduces us to, both of these women, my guess, just because they're human, and based upon what they're doing, are depleted. That's my guess. And Mary is depleted, and it seems like she's tuned into that. So what is she doing? She is tuning into Jesus. She wants to hear. She's positioned to listen. Stuff isn't done. There's things to do. There's all these to-dos and to-dos and to-dos, but she chooses in this moment to slow down. She chooses to stop focusing on all the to-dos so she can to be, and specifically with Jesus and the other people with Jesus. Now, Martha, she was open. She opened her home. She created space and rhythm and routine for everyone to gather, but she was distracted, the text tells us. She wants to hear. She wants Jesus there, but she can't stop. She can't stop doing. She can't stop thinking about how am I going to create the best and how am I going to be better and how are we going to get all this right? And so what does she do? She chooses to hurry more. She chooses to keep going. She can't stop. And then she came to him, verse 40, she came to Jesus and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister, she's left me to do the work by myself? Tell her, help me. The Lord answered, Martha, Martha, you're worried and you're upset about many things. There's so much wisdom in what Jesus is about to say. But few things are needed. Somebody needed to hear that today. Few things are needed, or indeed, only one. Only one. Not only is Martha depleted, as Jesus starts to tell us about her emotional and mental state, and maybe spiritual state, she's distracted. She's depleted. She's distracted. We see she's a little angry. And my guess is it's the type of distraction and depletion that leads to depression. And not only that, but she's deceived. She thinks her focus should be on everything else but the few things that Jesus says matter, and actually is missing the most important thing. So all of these things are happening inside of Martha. So let me ask this. When you get to the end of the day, when you get to the end of a week, as you're ending this season, maybe when you get to the end of the year, let me ask, is this you? Are you depleted? There's so much to be done. There's so many relationships to make better. There's so many things about you that need to be better. Are you distracted? And all of that work, because it is work, trying to better yourself or trying to better that, are you depressed because there's no progress? Or you're just not as far along as you want, and it's affecting you and it's affecting things. And then are you tempted? Are you tempted to be deceived that you can't stop? Don't stop. Don't stop. It's not okay to stop. It's not okay. See, this happens to us all the time. And when you want to hear something different at the end of the year, what keeps us from being a good father, what keeps you from being a good friend, what keeps you from being a good son or daughter, what keeps you from having a better relationship, what keeps you from having a rock solid relationship with God, from that being true, is that we keep depleting ourselves. We keep running out of what we need. And I want you to think about this. That dream you want to hear, the thing I've been asking you to imagine all series long. I want you to read this quotation with me, and I want this to hit you in the way that it needs to. So just let's slow down on this next slide. Living with this current pace, analyze yourself. Whatever your pace is. These current rhythms, how you do days and weeks and years, going to what you go to for energy, so when you get tired, what you go to for energy, will it leave you depleted, frustrated, and possibly put the most important things at risk? What if the problem, why we don't progress or why we don't hear what we want to hear, what if the problem is your pace? What if you're depleted because you're doing and you're doing and you're doing and you're doing, when Jesus says only a few things are required? And so sometimes we think we need more time. You don't need time. You don't need more time. Sometimes we think, well, we need a better parenting strategy. Those things are good, but you don't need a better parenting strategy. Sometimes we think, well, I just need a break of luck like, they did. And if I could just have that break, then no, you don't need a break of luck. And sometimes we think, well, if my circumstances were better and if the person I was married to, synced up with me a little bit more on this or whatever, then no, you don't need that. It's good, but that's not what you need. What do you need? You need energy. You need energy. What you need with your, if you want to build your relationship with your kids or be a better father or mother or whatever, you don't need time. You likely already have that. What do you need? Your kids, what they need you to have is energy in that time. That's what they need. What does your marriage need? It doesn't need more time. It doesn't need more dates. What it needs is your energy. When you're with each other, that you have energy for each other, to be with each other, to listen to each other. Why do you argue and fight? Because you don't have energy to listen empathetically. You're tired. That's why you fight at night. You're depleted. Do you know what your future needs and your faith needs? Energy. Not just a quiet time or, a time to read the text. What it needs is you having energy to put into it. That's going to make the difference. Do you know why you delay to obey? It's because you don't have energy. You're depleted. You have nothing left. It's the only thing, energy, that you need more of to continue to create the future that you want to see. And so how are you going to get energy when you're depleted? And I'm going to tell you, rest. Not a book, not a blog article, not a podcast, not even, coming to church necessarily. You need rest. Why is Mary at the feet of Jesus? She needs energy. She's tired. She's human. Life is hard, and she rightly sees what will actually give her energy, what will keep her going, what will allow her to sustain is sitting at the feet of Jesus. And so we can understand that rest is listening to Jesus. The highest form of rest involves a connection to Jesus. And I love what Jesus says about Mary's choice to rest. Here's what he says: it will not be taken from her. Isn't that great? She's choosing to rest. She's choosing to be. She's choosing to exist. She's choosing not to better herself in this moment or something around her. She's choosing to rest. And Jesus says it's not going to be taken from her, because all the other hours, all the other tasks, all the other days, all the goals, all the issues, all the improvement, well, you know what it does? It takes from you. And it has taken from her. And Jesus says, I'm not taking this away from her, because everything else is taking. And she needs this, and you need this, and I need this. What she needs is what only I, Jesus, can fully give, which is rest and replenishment. Notice Jesus himself, he's not working. He's being with the people he's around, resting. Now, rest is hard. It's hard. It's hard to rest, because in order to rest, we have to choose. This is why it's hard. We have to choose to take rest. And when we choose to take rest, because no one's going to make you rest, when you choose to take rest, what do you have to do? You have to leave the rest. That's why it's so hard. To take rest, you have to leave the rest of what you could do. And you have to believe that this rest is the best thing for you. And I love what Jesus clarifies to Martha and to all of us. And I'll say it again. There's only a few things that you really need to be focusing on. And actually, there's one that's most important, speaking about himself. And he said, if you get this right, everything else flows from here. If you can get this most important thing right, listening to Jesus, resting in and with Jesus and what he gives you, that's what's going to give you the ability to keep creating, and that's what's going to allow you to arrive where you want to be at the end of the year and at the end of the marriage and at the end of this season and in your relationships. See, you will be at your best. You got to believe this. You will be at your best when you have a rhythm of rest. Sometimes you just need to take rest. Sometimes it's not about bettering yourself today. Sometimes it's about resting with where you're at because of what it does to you. And you need regular rhythms of planned rest. Do I take rest? Do you? Do you take it? Do you feel guilty stopping? Are you able to put all the things in their appropriate places so you can focus on the most important things? Do you rest long enough? Are you able to leave the rest so you can take rest and replenish yourself? When you rest, when I rest, do you rest well? Because I believe a lot of you rest, but I think sometimes the problem is we don't rest well. And when we're done resting, we're still depleted. We're still depressed. We're still distracted. And the truth is, most of us don't know how to do this. It hasn't been modeled for us, or we haven't made the time to do it. And so maybe what you need to hear from Jesus today, so you can progress in what you want your relationships and how you feel compelled those relationships need to be. Maybe what you need to hear from Jesus, from God to you, take some rest. I'll handle the rest. Just take some rest. Maybe for you to be the wife or the husband or the person you need to be, maybe you just need to take some rest. You're doing it all on your own. You're focusing on this and that and this and that, but you're not resting. And so I want to get super practical for the rest of this message. I want to give you 6 insights that will allow you to think about what rhythms of rest that you need, okay? So I'm careful not to say, here's 6 things to do, That would be strange. But not that there's no doing in this, but I just want you to think about these insights. And really want to thank a pastor named Wayne Cordero, because I read this book that he wrote called Leading on Empty when I was 24, okay? And I read this book fresh, in the ministry, just became a dad, and I read this book, and I read about it in Empty, and I, went through the pages, and I was like, empty? What is this guy talking about, I'm not empty. Let's go, I just got this job, and I'm ready to, reach teenagers, and, I'm a dad, and this is great, and we would watch TV till 1 a.m, and, everything was, I'm empty? What is this guy, how does somebody get empty? Well, 12 years later, a couple of more kids, a couple of moves, some health scares in my wife's life, in my life, in our kids' lives, a global pandemic, and countless mistakes. I now know what he's talking about. It takes its toll. Life does. Trying to lead a family does. Trying to have a solid career does. It drains you. It takes it out of you. And so I opened the book up this week, and I read one chapter specifically about rest, and it really has inspired some of these insights that I'm gonna give you. So I want to give him credit for that, and I put some of these in my own words. But I want you to know these insights so you can know how to rest well, not just rest. The first insight I want to share with you is you need to know what rest is and what rest isn't. And there are 5 maybe parts that are regularly, segmented as these are ourselves. These are the parts of ourselves. You're talking about spiritually, mentally, emotionally, relationally. And every part of us needs rest. Every part. And rest should involve things that feed your soul, feed you spiritually. Rest should involve things that help you focus your mind because it's so scattered. Rest should involve things that allow you to feel emotions that you haven't allowed yourself to feel. Rest should engage your physical body. Your senses should be engaged, maybe because all week long you've sat behind a desk or something, I don't know. Rest should involve people that you enjoy and cultivate life with. And rest should be things that help you recover. Now, when you rest, this is how to know if you're resting. When you rest, you should feel replenished with energy and refocused on who and what matters most to you. Do you rest well? After resting, you should feel energized for your job, for whatever tasks that you have to do on a daily or weekly basis, for the people in your life. That's how you know if you're resting. Now, everyone needs rest, and some of us need more rest. And as we age, we need more rest. And sometimes after, events or activities or seasons, it's going to take a longer recovery. But here's something that I want to challenge you with, okay? You're probably not resting well if you dread Monday. That means there's something that might need to be changed up because you're heading into the week empty. And so what we need to do then is look at this second insight. Identify pseudo or false energy sources. And this is what we go to when we get tired. What is something that you go to when you're tired, but it actually doesn't rest you or replenish you? The easiest one is caffeine, right? Just give me another cup of coffee. Give me an energy drink, like something. Or some of us, when we're tired, we go to entertainment. I just need to shut this day out and tune out, And we just watch. Or some of us go to our phone. Oh, this day's so frustrating. I'm so tired. Some of us, we just indulge whatever our body is telling us to do, which isn't always wise, but we're tired and we think this will give us a fill. Now, some of us, we really like sports or something like that, and so we watch a game and we have a lot of fun, but it doesn't really fill you. It just entertains you. It's fun. Now, some of us go to a hobby, which hobbies can be good and give you things, but not necessarily rest you. And we've all done this, especially if you've had kids. Hey, what a long week. Let's put those little rectangles in front of those kids so I can get some rest. And let me ask you, after you pull it away from them and fight and claw, and you've had your time, which probably looked a lot like this too, do you feel rested? So what do you go to for energy? Does it only distract me from my depletion, or does it leave me feeling refreshed and refocused and renewed? What do you go to? Because what you go to can distract you from tiredness, or what you go to can actually fill you. And so what are the activities, what are the experiences that actually fill me? That actually fill my soul, that actually rejuvenate my body? Insight number 3, if you're looking for rest and re-energizement, start with the source. Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus, not in front of her flat screen or her Samsung or her iPhone 14. Jesus is the only infinite source of energy. And we don't spend near enough time with that source. God created the world in 6 days, right? We all know the story. And on the 7th day, he rested. God didn't need the rest. He has the infinite source of energy. What is he doing? He's showing us that he's creating a rhythm that we need to model up with. And he's also showing us that God, being creator, also wants time to enjoy and experience what he has created. Here's what we do. We create and do for 6 days, and then we ignore rest, and we don't press pause, and we just hit repeat. The difference between us and God is that he doesn't deplete, but you do. And I do. And the consequence of your bad rhythm and my bad rhythm, it may not be felt today. It may not be felt when you're younger, but it eventually will. You might wake up one day, and maybe for some of you, you're reading my mail right now. Like you might wake up one day and realize that your pace, what led to you becoming who you don't want to be. Sure, you have money in the bank, some good investments, pretty nice car. You have an HGTV house. But what's happening to you? What's happening to your relationships? In pursuit of all of that, that's supposed to facilitate good relationships. Insight number 4, respect the created rhythms. God created rhythms for you to rest because you're a human being. You're not God. You're not infinitely filled with energy. And so the power to change rests in your willingness to rest and replenish from the creator of energy and time. You just have to be surrendered to that because you're going to run out. And you need to have this rhythm of going to the creator of energy. And we typically think that a morning starts a day, right? Well, the day starts when I wake up. But in the creation account, which I've already sort of referenced, it actually reads like this: evening and morning. Not morning and evening, evening and morning in the first day, evening and morning in the second day. So actually the first thing, according to the Genesis creation poem, is the first thing that we were programmed to do is to rest. Isn't that interesting? And rest, especially in Hebrew times, a day was 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. And so the day starts at 6 p.m. And so the very first thing you should do in your day is rest. But that's not how we approach our day. The other rhythms that God has given us to rest is sleep. That's almost the first thing you should do in your day, according to the creation account, is sleep. You're designed to sleep, and you're not sleeping enough. How much could be solved if you were well rested when you woke up? How much more energy would you have? Exercise. Your body was made to move. There are studies that show one of the benefits of exercise is more energy. Eating right, drinking water. These are things that God created that we just, we ignore. And he's like, here you go. Here's the things I've given you. Just stop ignoring the created rhythms that God has given you to rest your body and to rest your mind. Wayne Cordero says, often it takes a brush with death to get us to rearrange our diet. And it doesn't have to be like that. Insight number 5, you have a capacity. Know yours. You have a certain amount of energy. Not everyone's is the same. And in fact, in any given day, you have a certain amount of energy bursts that you can give to things. How many do you have? I don't know how many you have, 6, 7 energy bursts where you can significantly do this or focus on that. I'd be surprised if you had more than 6 or 7. You'd be pretty intense. But what do these energy bursts need to be used for? How will you use them? Well, hopefully this looks something like this: time with God, your most important work, your most impactful work, your most important people, and yourself and your health. You only have so much energy to give. Those are the 5 most important things, probably. Insight number 6, take a Sabbath. Weekly rest is not a suggestion. A 24-hour period where you cease, you be, you trust, you enjoy, you refocus. This could be a game changer for you, for the transformation that you seek. And I can already hear you object. I can hear it. So what do you do on a Sabbath? Let me tell you. You look your loved ones in the eyes. You eat meals together, not in the car, not in front of the TV. You have time with God. You gather with the church. You connect with friends. You have meaningful conversation. You laugh a lot. You reflect on the past week, and you celebrate what's good in your life and what good God is doing. Imagine if you had Sabbath like that, what that would do for you. Sabbath is not catch-up day, the day we do home chores. This is my hobby day. See you later, family. I'm going to go golf all day. No. Sabbath is a way for us to reset and refocus because maybe our pace got off track all week, and what we value most was left by the wayside, and we need this. Take rest so that you can be at your best. And when you rest well and make it a rhythm. And I realize that not all of us are the same, and we have different, situations that affect how we can rest and when we can rest, but it doesn't mean that you get to be exempt from rest. This is a created rhythm, and you will drain out, and it will affect your relationships. If you don't heed what I'm saying, if you don't hear this, you're not going to hear what you want to hear. You might hear something like, I want a divorce. This isn't working for me anymore. I don't really want to spend time with you, Dad. Nothing's changed about you. And that's not what you want to hear. And that's not what I want to hear. So what do you need so you can hear what you want to hear at the end of the year? You need a soft heart. You need to be regularly positioned and routinely listening to Jesus through scripture and in different settings, like small groups, like solitude, like gatherings like this, to where you can listen to Jesus. You need to remove the delay between hear and obey, and you need to live with a rhythm of rest. That's how you hear what you want to hear. Jesus said, you and I think there are many things needed, but really a few. Indeed, only one. Simply Jesus. If we can just reorient our lives to listen to him, imagine what you'll hear at the end of this year and at the end of this season. I want to read this passage to you. Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Listen to Jesus. Take rest. He'll take the rest. Would you stand? Let me pray for you. God, thank you so much that you care so much about us. Help us to hear what you're saying to us. Help us to take rest. And when we do it, remind us of who you are. Remind us of what's important. Fill us again, week after week after week, so we can follow you, so our lives can change, so our marriages can change, so our spiritual standing with you might change. We love you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.